This is the Agribusiness Report. I'm Tony St. James, joined today by the Honorable Dusty Johnson, who represents South Dakota in the House of Representatives. He's a member of the House Ag Committee and is also on the Education and Labor Committee. It's great to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, it is really a busy time here in D.C., especially on Capitol Hill, as we near the end of the fiscal year, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, if we don't get this thing funded by the end of September, the government shuts down, which of course is ridiculous. Nobody should be running government that way. So the House did its job yesterday. We did pass a continuing resolution, but we got to make sure the Senate does their job. And frankly, even getting our CR done was no easy deal, and Ag was in the crosshairs there for a while.
When we talk about that continuing resolution and the CCC, that's not just extra money floating around, is it? It's vital for operation of USDA?
Well, yeah, it's good to call that out because a lot of my urban colleagues, I don't think, understood that. I mean, they just thought this was COVID-19 money that was hitting the door, or some special new program we were creating, and the reality is it was not. I mean, the farmers can't count on the weather. They can't count on commodity prices. There's tremendous uncertainty in this line of work. But the one thing that Congress has been able to do to help, other than build toward market access, is get a farm bill in place that provides some predictability for 5 years. And these were farm bill programs that were at risk of not being able to cut their checks in October. And my thought is, if you're a producer who enters into a contract with the United States government that you're going to manage your property in accordance with CRP rules, that the government, gosh darn, better well hold up their end of the deal by cutting you a check when they said they were going to cut you a check. And so I needed to convince my urban colleagues that this was about making good on the commitments that we made in the 2018 Farm Bill. This was a non-negotiable, and unless we wanted to undermine the predictability and the stability of Farm Bill programs over the course of the next X number of years, we gosh darn better not play brinksmanship with the CCC.
Another program that was out there, and I guess this kind of ties back around to it, the CFAP program, now CFAP2. Is CFAP2 in a place where it's better for producers, you think?
It is better. Clearly, and it's not perfect, I want to make that clear, but it's clear to me that USDA listened to some of the feedback we gave them in the wake of CFAP 1.0. And the reality is we had $60 billion worth of COVID-19 damage done to the ag industry broadly defined. And so there's no way that $13.5 billion in CFAP 2.0 is going to make all that pain go away. But I think most producers understand that it was going to be a lean year and that it wasn't the role of government to hold them harmless from COVID-19. What we wanted to do was make sure that they had enough so that they could get into next year and be able to, put their investment and their hard work back on the line with an opportunity to feed the world and feed this country. And so not unanimously, but I would say overwhelmingly, those producers have been grateful of CFAP 2.0.
One area that we've really been watching as well is the livestock sector. And, if we're talking about the cattle industry, obviously they've seen pain over the past few years as well.
They have, and so often we talk, there are these legislative solutions that come up, and I think they're really attacking the symptoms. And I like to back a half a step up and say, well, what is the real market weakness that is causing, the gap between what producers get on the hoof and what consumers have to pay, at the meat counter? What can we do to attack the fundamentals of that problem? And that's what I've tried to do by making it easier to add capacity at the smaller processor level. We've got a number of processors, thousands of them, that are inspected by really high quality state inspection regimes that haven't been able to sell across state lines. Now, there's a good way to do this and there's a bad way to do this. We don't want to do anything that's going to undermine our ability to export American beef, the best beef in the history of the world, to other markets. And we don't want to do anything to undermine food safety. But a plan that I've got, it's a bipartisan plan. We've been working with a number of my friends on the other side of the aisle. The DIRECT Act, it does not undermine those markets, and it does not undermine food safety, but it does allow state-inspected facilities to sell across state lines direct to consumer. And I think that's the kind of thing we can do to add capacity, not just at the big boys, and the big girls, but really throughout that processing part of the industry.
I mentioned you also serve on a couple of subcommittees. You've had a couple of hearings along the way, and nutrition has been one of those committees that has had a hearing. Are we moving in the right direction when you think of where we're going as far as nutrition, and I guess oversight's part of that as well? Is that going the direction you want to see it?
By and large, it's not, at least not at the committee level. I mean, I do like to work in a bipartisan way. Nutrition is really key to, I mean, it's close to my heart. I mean, I grew up on some of these nutrition programs. We're talking food stamps, and there were certainly times growing up where, my large family of 7 would have been on that program. And I'm grateful for it. But I think with all of our welfare programs in this country, we want to make sure that they increase over time independence rather than dependence. Now, I do think the administration's got a lot of things right, and we have tried to be a partner with them in rolling out some things that make it clear that if you're an able-bodied young person without dependents at home, if you're on food stamps, you should work. Now, we're not talking about 100 hours a week or 40 hours a week. The rules that the administration tightened up made it clear that, the 1996 welfare reform efforts of Congress, which called for 20 hours a week of work, that was the right thing to do. And we've had a number of states that have watered that down and undermined that in the year. I like the fact that the administration is working with us to try to get back some of the comprehensiveness of that approach. But a lot of my buddies on the other side of the aisle, I don't think understand how critically important work is. Work is not punishment. Work is opportunity. And again, we're not talking about making disabled people work or old people or people with 5 kids at home. This is about people who really should be out in the workplace.
Appreciate your time, appreciate the work that you do. We wish you the best and hope to see you again soon.
Sounds good, thanks.
Again, the Honorable Dusty Johnson representing South Dakota on today's Agribusiness Report.